Samantha Mabuber, who is here, Eva Junger, who I don't think has ever been here.
Sorry, that's Matt's proxy, who I thought was going to be a permanent proxy for the rest of the semester, which is why her contact information is in there and not Matt's.
Gotcha. Well, didn't hear anything from her. Ross Kelton, not here. Greg Bowser, not here. Anthony, not here, but somebody else should be here for law. Nobody's here. Fabulous. Simon, or computer science. Yes. Okay, see? Okay.
K-R-T-H-I-K.
Yes, okay. Allison.
Here.
Anna Vidovic. Ishika sent regrets. Ranjit. Not here. Patrick Bizantini.
Yep.
Amelia McKenzie.
Here.
Tara Dawn.
Yep.
Ben Lawler. James Lively. Amona.
Yep.
Mona. Ainsley. Taylor Quinn.
Ainsley sent his regrets.
Ainsley did send his regrets. Second campus director-elect. Emma Buchanan. Daniel Smith. Caitlin Lowe.
Here.
Laura Evans.
Here.
Brett. Or Alex Believer. Brett. Rebecca Eldridge apparently may have sent a proxy, but he is not here yet. Alex Killam has multiple motions and is not here. Ryan Hardigan, not here. Hema, JD, and a proxy to Jen Molesky by Jacqueline Skiptunis. Okay, fabulous.
I got a phone call from Alex. She's sorry, she just found out that she can't make it, but I'm going to be able to speak to her motion.
Okay, so you are willing to move them instead of her? She, like, you're willing to move them instead?
Yeah.
Okay. Fabulous. Well, then we have of the executive. We do not have Saga Jaw. Not applicable. Aaron Beal.
Here.
Josh Cook.
Hey.
Danny Rams.
Hello.
Okay, we have quorum. Wonderful. Emma.
Hey.
Fabulous.
How's it going?
I'm okay. How are you? That's good to hear. We have a new secretary for today. Her name is Josie. Give her a warm welcome, Secretary. All right. We are now on Council Package version 4. This is the agenda that we will be amending and adopting today. The moment it is adopted, I will send it to everybody so that you have a current copy. I can zoom this in a little bit. Okay, so there is immediately both presentations have been struck, so there will be no presentations. That does not need to be approved because the guy presenting them, Rams, is just not going to present them. We have two pending strike motions. Aaron?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a seconder?
Yeah.
Pat?
Yeah.
So that is those are motions to strike the rescinding the motion to join SNS and motion to strike joining SNS as an associate member. Those are both being struck due to communication received today by our lawyer saying that it would constitute a breach of contract under the current interpretation to leave SNS for the 2014-2015 year. With that in mind, this is likely going to go before the board to be sorted out, and they would probably, I think the general consensus was that it was not definitely legal to leave at this time.
I think it's one of many interpretations, and so we need time to figure it out.
All right, so motion to strike, rescinding the motion to join SNS and joining SNS as associate member from the agenda. All those in favor? All those opposed? Would anybody like to be noted opposed? All those abstentions? All right, fabulous. So those have been struck. There is now nothing left in old business. All right, there is also a motion to add the approval of the 2014-2015 advocacy budget, which is moved by Josh Cook, seconded by Aaron Beal.
I just want to speak to it, or amend it maybe?
We can amend the budget when we get there. This is to add to the budget itself, the approval of the budget to the agenda.
I wanted to amend it to make it a discussion item so we can discuss it today and then approve it next week, just given
There's no meeting next week.
or another week, so we can talk about it and then actually have time. Also, given that our incoming VP AE hadn't seen it before she went away, and so hasn't really had time to give input onto it.
All right, so there's a motion to add the approval of the 2014-2015 advocacy budget from Josh, and there's a second motion to add discussion of the 2014-2015 advocacy budget.
Can I amend it to make it a discussion item?
No, because we're gonna vote one or the other. So, does that make sense? Like, it's either gonna be a discussion or it's gonna be a decision, or it's gonna be not on there.
We do vote to make it, can we vote on the discussion first? Just so.
No, because the decision was already moved, so that would be the first
Okay, I guess,
on the.
so
So,
if we
all
want to
right,
discuss it, then you
so
vote against
we're
it.
gonna, does anybody have any comments in favor or against adding the approval of the 2014-2015 advocacy budget? Josh, do you want to speak to why?
I'm putting it on not as like a set concrete budget. I'm putting it on as a starting point so that council moving forward has something that's a ground, so it doesn't just give the executive $44,000 of play money. Putting it on so that the executive moving forward can bring it to council with any amendments they might have with this, and then council can therefore discuss it at that point. This is just kind of so we have something set in stone before a new council comes in, or a new executive comes in with the knowledge that we all have, so that this is already basically set in stone, so it can't just be avoided come down the road. Council wants to change it. I'm putting it forward so that it can be edited later. This doesn't necessarily need to be a set point. It's just a starting point so that it's not play money.
All right. Are there any other comments about adding the approval of the 2014-2015 advocacy budget as a decision item? All right. On adding the discussion of the 2014-2015 advocacy budget, Aaron, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. I mean, I think what's important to me is that there's just discussion on how to use this money. There was some consultations, but I know a lot of people weren't able to make them. I personally have a lot of personal concerns with the budget presented, but I know other people do. So I think it would be worth discussing our vision for advocacy, and then making sure the budget reflects that vision. And I think we have time. I think we can hopefully trust the new executive to not spend $44,000, but maybe we could just add a, be it resolve clause that the executive not spend the money before it being discussed. I also have a job description / just outline of what an advocacy coordinator could do that was written up by the incoming VP AE with some suggestions from me. So that's why I think it should be a discussion item.
All right. Would anybody else like to chime in on why it should be a discussion item? Would anybody like to chime in on why it shouldn't be a discussion item? Yes, Pat.
I specifically remember Josh running 3 different seminars on 3 different days of the week at 3 different times, so that there would be opportunities for people to go and express their views on this. I think that what he's bringing forward is probably something that is a reflection of those consultations. Any further discussion based on our attendance tonight might be discussed by a council that is much smaller than this one, or maybe a council that isn't this one at all and is potentially a new council. I feel much more comfortable passing this preliminary budget now, as Josh mentioned, and then actually moving forward with it.
All right. Are there any other comments at this time?
Okay,
All right.
I guess if that's acknowledged, I'm fine.
Aaron, please wait to be acknowledged before speaking. Yes, Taylor?
I think, oh, yeah, should we be using the mic?
Oh, yeah. I'm really sorry to the 3 people watching at home.
To my understanding from chatting with Josh and Aaron, kind of everyone wants the same thing where we should have some structure around it, but also flexibility. I support voting on it tonight with the be it resolved clause that any amendment to the budget has to be voted on by council to ensure that the VPAE or the executive in general next year can't just willy-nilly spend the money as they wish.
All right. Are there any other comments on adding the budget, advocacy budget as a discussion item? All right. First, we will vote on adding the approval of the 2014-2015 advocacy budget. If that fails, we will vote on adding the discussion of the 2014-2015 advocacy budget. All those in favor of adding the approval of the 2014-2015 advocacy budget to the agenda, please raise your hand.
One information first, sorry, Beth. Can I add that as be it further resolved to my motion?
We'll amend it when we get there.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Straight elbows. All those opposed? Would you like to be noted? Emma and Jen would both like to be noted. All those abstaining? We have an abstention from James Lively and Mabuber. Would you guys like to be noted? Sorry. No. Yes, Mabuber would like to be noted. Sorry?
Aaron also abstained.
And Aaron. All right. With that, the approval of the 2014-2015 budget is added to the agenda. The next item to be added to the agenda is the Equity and Accessibility Fund rollover, which is now being moved by Jen Oleski. All right.
Point of privilege.
Yes.
Can you zoom in a bit on that Word doc? It's really small.
Yes.
Thank you.
So the Equity and Accessibility Fund rollover motion is basically saying that on July 3rd, 2013, the money from the Student Accessibility Fund be used during the 2013-2014 only on a trial basis to fund a position dedicated to addressing issues of inequality, racism, and sexism within the university and DSU community. Whereas DSU Council voted that a limit of $30,000 be used for this purpose at the discretion of the VPFO and the Board of Ops, and that any future use of this fund for the purpose or any other purpose outside the original scope of the levy must be approved by DSU Council. And whereas the DSU Equity and Accessibility Department currently has $8,640 of its 13-14 budget left over, and whereas the E&A department was not created until August 2013 and hasn't completed a year of operation, whereas E&A is still establishing and developing itself and can use extra resources, and whereas the DSU fiscal year ended March 31st. Be it resolved that DSU Council approve money allocated to the E&A department that has not been used in the 2013-2014 fiscal year to be used in the coming 2014-2015 fiscal year, which is actually the year we are currently in. Jen, as the mover, you have 2 minutes to speak as to why you want to be added to this to be added to the agenda if you want to.
I don't know if I really need to say anything about it. I mean, it's pretty obvious that we have money. It should roll over back into the same department so that it can continue.
All right. Would anybody else like to speak to this being added to the agenda? To this being added to the agenda? Like in favor of this being added to the agenda? Sorry, this was on the Board of Ops meeting this morning, which is why. All right. Anybody would like to speak to this not being added to the agenda? Josh.
So obviously I don't have anything against the office being funded for the summer. That's not what I'm trying to say here. Just that the money is going to be collected in the fall. Given it's a department here, we don't necessarily need to roll over the money. We can still fund the office for the summer without having to roll over $8,000. Given that to roll over that $8,000, we'd have to re-budget that $8,000 for the summer. The office is already going to be receiving a large sum of money from the levy this fall, so I'd kind of like to just see it funded out of that. That's just my thoughts. But.
Would anybody else like to speak against adding this to the agenda as a decision item? All those in favor of adding this to the agenda, please raise. Oh, Danny passes his speaking rights to Jessica.
I just had a question. How is this formulated to be brought to the council to be put on agenda? I was wondering, like, who met or whatever and drafted this to bring to council.
It was drafted by Alexandra Killam, who is not here, and therefore it has been moved by Jen in her stead.
Yeah, okay. I was just wondering because wasn't there, and I may be wrong on this, but wasn't there an ad hoc committee created for this?
That is the next motion to be added.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah, there's two motions. This one is explicitly to do with the fact that there is funding left over, and the second one is to do with actual like recommendations from the ad hoc committee.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. All right. Anybody else who would like to say something? Forever hold your peace. Fabulous. All those in favor of adding this to the agenda as a decision item, please raise your hand now. Straight elbows.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Would you like to be noted? All right. So that has been added. And then the last one that I already have on the agenda is the equity and accessibility ad hoc recommendations. I received this from Alexandra a couple days or yesterday, but I did not receive an actual timeline that had been proposed. It says, be it resolved that the Equity and Accessibility Committee follow the timeline proposed by the ad hoc committee in developing an ENA office vision, job descriptions, and hiring dates. And be it further resolved that the contract of the current Equity and Accessibility Campaigns Coordinator be extended to July 31st. So I don't actually have a timeline that has been proposed, so I would actually, at this time, unless, Jen, do you have a timeline to be like that you can circulate, that you can send me in an email? Okay. Can you send that to emc@dal.ca? Okay. Would you like to speak as to why this should be on the agenda?
Yeah, so the ad hoc committee, as we agreed upon at last council meeting, met twice. We got pretty far with what we wanted to do. We decided a timeline. We figured out how we were going to come about the job descriptions and the vision for the office. And so this is just to say that the committee, the ENA committee, which already exists, that will then be reformed at the next council meeting, will follow the timeline that we've worked through and suggested in pursuing how we're going to continue the ENA office.
All right. Can you please get that timeline to me? Because unless we have a timeline to circulate, I would rule that clause out of order. All right. So assuming that I will be able to send you the timeline with the updated agenda in the next 5 minutes, would anybody like to speak against adding this decision item to the agenda? Can we get speaking rights for Jessica, please? Taylor, yeah.
I was here last council meeting, and I know the ad hoc committee, the A&E ad hoc committee was formed. They said to add people to it, and I believe Josh Cook had motioned that I should be part of that committee. If the committees met twice, I was nor notified. I wasn't notified at all that these meetings were taking place. So I thought that because I was motioned to council that I was part of this committee. If that is B, then I would like this struck from the record until the actual committee could actually meet.
All right. Was anybody in the room actually on the Equity and Accessibility Ad Hoc Committee? Yes? Raise your hand if you were. Yes? All right. So you guys did meet, but can anybody speak to the fact that Jessica was not in the meeting? Yes, Jen.
I'm really sorry. I didn't actually send out the email about the committee meetings. It was sent out to council, and I'm sorry that your name wasn't added. I can't actually speak to why that was a thing. But I'm sure everyone else received the emails that we were meeting twice. It went out the night of council last week.
All right. Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak either for or against adding the accessibility and ad hoc recommendations to the agenda? All those in favor of adding this to the agenda, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Would you like to be noted? All right. I believe, just let me do a quick check here. I believe that was everything that I had. Yeah, I believe that was everything that I had received before the meeting that needed to be added. Is there any other additions to the agenda? Yes, Brett.
I just have a question. Is the current agenda that we've now so lovelily crafted, are the Senate people up at the front of it?
Yes, they are.
Okay, because that's why we're here today, and this was
Yep.
supposed to be just for that, and it was a special meeting. So I love that everything else is crept in.
Welcome to the Dalhousie Student Union. All right. Yes, Senate is right at the beginning after approval of minutes from the previous meeting. Actually, after appointing the chair, I haven't technically been appointed yet. All right. Council package version 4 is. Who am I? What am I doing here? Who gave this girl a microphone? All right. So I have not yet received the email regarding the timeline, Jen? No, that's because now it will be sent. Continue editing. Attach.
While we wait, comments.
Yes, you have a comment. A comment about what exactly? Just a comment in general?
Yeah, I suppose it's about audits. It's about the Sheriff Hall Council, and we have a letter for the Housing Student Union. So who should I give it to?
You should
Since
give
there's
it
no president
to
now.
Josh Cook as VP Finance.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So the final agenda has been sent, and hopefully everybody gets it sometime soon. Outlook, cooperate. Oh, why did I close it? Silly of me. All right, so with that, we will move on to the actual meeting. Only half an hour in. It's like a record for us now. All right, so the first item on the agenda is the appointment of the chair. Be it resolved that Elizabeth Croto be appointed as chair for the April 16th, 2014 DSU council meeting. Are there any challengers? Please, guys, please. All right, if there are no challengers, going once, going twice. All those in favor of appointing me as chair, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All right, we have 2 opposition. Would you like to be noted? Okay. Yeah? Hema, would you like to be noted? You should write his name down. No. All right, we already did roll call. Moving on. Approval of minutes from the previous meeting. Be it resolved that the minutes from the following meetings be approved, the ones for April 9th, 2014. Are there any comments, edits, anything like that to those minutes? Going once, going twice. All those in favor of adopting the minutes from the April 9th, 2014 council meeting, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Moving on. Appointments, Senate representatives. Josh, as the nominating committee, who would you recommend for Senate? All right. Yep. Can we run our mic to JD? JD, keep it short.
All right, so the nominating committee met once. We decided to do was, instead of trying to interview each candidate, we would just recommend ones that we thought would be up to the task and then let council decide. We received quite a few nominations. We narrowed it down to 4. You get to pick 3. So our nominees that we chose are Taylor Quinn, Ali Caladine, Jay Fredette, Dylan Latendra. I think I'll say everyone's name. So I will, on behalf of the nominating committee, I move their nomination.
Dylan.
Who's unable to attend, but gave me email for you.
Okay, what's his last name? Can we get some spelling on that?
L-E-T.
Yep.
E-N.
Yep.
D-R-E.
And Jay Fredette? Fredette? And is Dylan the same Dylan that ran in the actual, the original election? Okay. And Ali also ran in the election, for those of you who were unaware. All right. So are there any nominations from the floor at this time?
Yes. I nominate, sorry if I don't pronounce this right, Sudassian? Yeah.
You've got it written down, though?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have a nomination from the floor of Sudas Sentil? 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 All right. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Yes, Jen? There's a nomination. Oh, sorry, I suppose I should have asked. Did you accept the nomination? No. Do you accept the nomination?
Yeah, I accept the nomination.
All right, thank you. We now have a nomination for Aaron Beal. Aaron, do you accept the nomination? Yes, Aaron accepts the nomination. And I am not going to be able to spell that unless I have it in front of me. I am sorry. All right. So are there any other nominations from the floor? Are there any other nominations from the floor? Last time, are there any other nominations from the floor? All right. we are going to go in alphabetical order by last name. You will have 1.5 minutes to give your speech. Afterwards, yeah?
Can I request that we have 4? Is that crazy?
We have 5 people at 4 minutes per. That's 20 minutes. At 4 minutes per question, that's 40 minutes. So if people, we can give you, how about 2? How about 2?
Okay. I wrote a speech. I'm going to cut it down now. That's okay.
We have
Carry on. Sorry for the disruption.
All right, 2 minutes for speeches. We will have afterwards up to 4 questions of 30 seconds each with 30-second answer times. I will be timing and I will cut you off. We will be going in, like I said, alphabetical order by last name. Other nominees will be asked to leave the room during the speeches of the nominees that aren't speaking. You guys know what I mean. When we get to voting, it will be by, I will entertain a motion for a secret ballot that would be appropriate. We are going to go off the recommendation of the Elections Committee for how this ballot should be conducted, which was circulated in their package to Council 3 weeks ago before the March 26th meeting that didn't happen and was pushed back to April 2nd. What that means is that it will be a multiple vote, simple first past the post plurality. This means that you will get to write down up to 3 names. You can write down 1, 2, 3 names, or 0. If you write down 0, that is considered a spoiled ballot. If you write down 1, you are only voting for that 1 person. If you write down 2, you're only voting for those 2 people. And if you write down 3, you are voting for all 3. Do you have any questions on how to fill out a ballot? Once the ballots have actually been counted, it will be the 3 people with the most number of times their name was written down. But you can't vote for the same person twice in one ballot. Will, do you have any questions? Speaking rights from HEMA.
From HEMA? Wicked. I'm just wondering, so do they actually require a majority of votes cast in any sense, or no?
No,
Okay.
First past the post. Which means, for those of us who didn't do political science, that the top 3 people with the most number of votes, even if that is not more than 50%, will be elected. That is the recommendation from the Elections Committee, and they did all the consultation with like actual political science profs to interpret the Constitution and the policy surrounding this. So we're going to go with that because that seems like the logical and respectful thing to do. So if there are no further comments, we will move straight into the speeches. We will start with Aaron Beal. I would ask Ali, Taylor, Dylan, and Jay to leave the room. Oh, and sorry, Siddharsan to leave the room. And close the door. All right, Aaron, you have the floor for 2 minutes.
Hey everyone! Everyone probably, you all know me. I just do want to speak pretty quickly about why I'm running. It's a good question. What I have done and what I will do. In many ways, the first is interesting. It's been like a long couple years of 90-hour work weeks. So like, why am I doing this? Because I've started a lot of projects that I haven't finished. Things at Senate move way slower than things at the DSU. Things like Senate reform, I've started 1 year and 3 quarters ago, and I've presented every quarter and it's still not done. Senate reform is increasing student senator seats to 15 from 7. Fall reading week started 1 year and a quarter ago, still hasn't finished. And I've built up a lot of things. So built up a lot of credibility. I know how Senate works. Anyone who's been on Senate often likes to run again because you learn all this stuff, and then by the end of your year, you're just learning how to implement stuff. So I'm just at the point where professors are actually contacting me saying, hey, do you mind seconding this motion? Like, what are your thoughts on this? Got invited with someone else from council to a dinner of different senators to talk about how to democratize Senate and make things more engaging. Things I've done over the past year, Senate's like this kind of position where you could check off small boxes really easily. And I feel like I haven't done that. Instead, we've pushed for like bigger things. So in the past, people have lobbied for 1 more day to the fall reading break, and we've lobbied for a reading week. Senate reform, they've added 1. We're trying to add 15. I've hosted probably 5 times more events focusing on education than past. 30 seconds. Oh God. So what I promised to do if elected, I do want to engage more. So I have so many things to say at council and with students that I don't often talk about the stuff at Senate. So things I promised to do: meet with every single society at least twice, hold an event with different senators and people to talk about education, as well as just generally making things more engaging. Senate website, holding roundtables with professors and whatnot. Thank you.
Thank you, indeed.
All right. All right, we will now entertain up to 4 questions. They can each be 30 seconds long, and Aaron will have 30 seconds to respond. So who has any questions? Hands up. Any questions? Ryan. Yeah?
Can you please tell us what the duty of the Senate is?
What the duty of Senate is? Oh my. Well, we have exactly 1 senator in the room. Ryan, would you like to?
I'll explain. So Senate is the administrative body of the whole university. So there's Senate and Board of Governors. Board of Governors deals with financial stuff. Senate deals with academic stuff. So Senate, there's only 7 students that sit on Senate, and the rest is full of teachers, professors, and a few like executive position members. My question though was, I'm going to ask everyone this question just to see if they know what Senate is. What subcommittees do you plan on sitting on, and why?
I mean, I'm looking forward to the discussion with all the other senators. There's tradition, but then I feel like it's a bit different since I've already sat on Senate. It makes a lot of sense, I would suggest, for me to sit on things where I've already started. So Senate Planning and Governance is where Senate reform is going through. I just did a presentation today. We just formed a subcommittee. So I would love to sit on both of those because I really want to get that. I'm like just at the point of like building up credibility. Yeah, like people understanding the issues, and it would be a shame to have that turnover and to lose all of that.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? Yes, we have a question from Jessica. Can I get speaking rights from Danny?
Sorry, moving my hair.
Oh, sorry. You are directly behind Brett, so I can only see your hand. So I assumed that you were raising it to speak. Jen has a question? Yes?
Can you give us a few examples of, like, besides what you've already talked about what you've done on Senate and what you want to do with Senate?
Sure. I mean, there's lots of things where we need a student response to things. I think what's important there is just being really vocal. A lot of people are afraid to speak up. So, yeah, like last Senate meeting, I brought forward a letter written by someone about racism on campus, as well as spoke about the vision that's being created and tried to like bring us some perspective. Then there's the non-reactive things, so things we're actually bringing forward a proposal. This is what we want, and this is like how we're going to spend a year to get it. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? Karthik.
So Aaron, if you try to bring, if you're planning to bring the advocacy under your control, like under your legislation, so how effectively will you face it? Like the complete DSU advocacy? So advocacy review committee and other sorts.
The advocacy committee?
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's really much to do with a student senator position. Like, I think I can give a perspective on that, but I'm actually looking forward to engaging more on local things. I've realized in the past year that what people really respond to is things at Dal campus, so library cuts, library hours. I think that's where we can get some really concrete wins. So I'm really actually excited to work on like Dal budget stuff, international student issues, and also important that as a senator, you're not just representing students on the Senate, you're like a general student leader. People acknowledge you for that.
All right, are there any more questions? We have time for one more. Going once. Jamal, as Sexton Campus Director.
Hi, Aaron. What's the most important academic issue Sexton Campus is facing?
Sorry, unbiased.
So, like, I mean, academic issues, it's interesting that word's been thrown around a lot in the last year. I would say, like, something everyone is facing is cuts to their education, right? Like, how we can, like, innovate our education all we want, but if we're actually experiencing government cuts, it's hard to do that. We see that replicated on Sexton with space, for instance, where the university is raising a student fee, which is technically illegal under the government MOU, but they're doing it anyway. And maybe, like, students might be in favor of it, and, like, I think a lot of people are in favor of more space, given that you're crammed in to the small spaces in a classroom. But I think it's important that that's illegal and that shouldn't have to come from students.
All right, Erin, could you
Go and send in Ali Caladine, please.
Hey everyone. How's it going? Cool. So I have
You've
2
got
minutes.
2 minutes, you'll get this in 30 seconds, and then I'll count down.
Okay, great. Perfect. Well, thanks so much for being here, everyone. I know that this meeting was basically called just so you could hear us speak. I'm Ali Caladine. I have been chair of the DSU for the past 12 months. That might be why you recognize me. So I ran for Senate in the original elections and have been thinking about it for a long time, which has meant that I've had time to sort of plan out what I wanted to do when I was overconfident when there were 3 people running. That's not so sure anymore, but I would love to tell you what my plans were or how they were forming anyways. I was lucky enough to talk to a lot of different people who are taking on leadership roles next year or have been in leadership roles about how to get students more engaged with Senate and how to make sure students actually know what Senate is. I talked to Beth about reaching out to Sexton students. I've talked to Anthony Rossborough a couple times about reaching out to law students and hopefully a bridge to other professional studies as well. I've talked to Caitlin, who's coming in as the president of DAS, and I've talked very extensively with Jacqueline. And what I have concluded is that I think the best thing to plan for next year is, and this is my goal if I'm on Senate, is to go in September and speak to every single faculty society that exists at DAL and present about what Senate is and teach them about the successes we've had in the past with Senate, what it is, and how we can move forward. And then I want to follow up with these faculty societies to hear what are the main issues that are addressing each of these faculties so that we can make a full vision and have Senate be planned out from the very beginning. So that's my plan. I also want to have town halls when it comes to more specific issues that come up throughout the year and follow in the footsteps of the senators this year, because I think they've been doing a great job with those town halls. Why am I the best person to do this? I think a senator should have a combination of being able to reach out to as many students as possible. I'm involved with over 10 societies at Dalhousie over the past 2 years. And I think the other important thing that senators should be able to do is actually represent students well on Senate. I have experience in DSU council meetings, so I'm quite good at Robert's rules. And I think I'm pretty confident and could present in a professional way. Thank you.
All right, we have time for 4 questions. Would anybody like to ask a question? Ryan, you have 30 seconds. I think you only need 10.
I'm asking everyone this question. What subcommittee would you like to sit on and why?
Thank you for the question. I want to sit on all of them, as I told the Gazette in my interview. However, I think that sitting on the appeals committee would be quite cool because I think it is important that students be able to actually confront the decisions that are made by Senate. I would like to sit on 4 subcommittees, and I don't think I have time to tell you about all of them because I forgot about my time limit. But I'd love to talk after.
All right, do we have any other questions? Yes, Caitlin.
What steps will you take to sort of expand upon the town halls that have happened and make them even more effective and engaging for students?
I really think that Senate in general, but especially the town halls that Senate runs, should be much more marketed through the DSU. And I think that there are steps we can take within the DSU, whether it's on the website or through council or through better Senate reports, that will make it so that everybody is actually aware of the issues happening with Senate. And I think it should be those issues that attract people to town halls, not just marketing the town halls.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions? Going once? All right, Allison, and then if we can get speaking rights for Jessica, then those are our 2 questions.
You talked about wanting to educate students on what Senate is. How are you going to approach those programs such as engineering and professional degrees, which have co-op terms, which don't know what, for students who don't know what happened the semester before, don't know what's going on with Senate, how are you going to reach out to those people in the winter term and educate them and tell them what happened last semester? Do you have plans for that, and how will you do it?
Thanks for the question. That's actually something that I haven't thought about too much. I think that I'd like to have a ongoing relationship with faculty societies. There's a lot of you. There's a lot of faculty societies, but I think if faculty societies shared that with us and shared, here's a concern, like, and I would reach out in the winter semester and say, does anybody need us to come in and present again? And like, if we would love to, if you will have us, would be my approach.
All right, thank you, and HEMA speaking rights to Jessica.
If elected, what do you think like would be the #1 like academic issue that's facing students on campus?
Thanks for the question. I think that this year the only academic issue that I've seen being faced is the library cuts. But existing as a student myself, I've heard a lot of talks about program cuts is always a problem, and just transparency. Having said that, there is no way that I, as a second-year student, I'm only in 2 faculties, I don't think at this point I am able to sum up what the biggest one is, because like, I was talking to Beth and she told me about issues with like software that I don't even understand. So I would love to hear from everyone else.
All right, thank you. Allie, could you please go out and get Jay?
He's not here.
Jay isn't here. Dylan is?
Nope.
No, Dylan has something he wants read.
And Jay, did Jay send something in that he wants read? No. Do you want to say anything about why the nominating committee recommended Jay? Or should we just wait for in-camera discussion for that?
Cool. Great.
Yeah, the next person is going to be Dylan reading out. So
okay.
Don't grab anybody.
I should have a short email from Dylan.
But JD, sorry, do you just want to wait until discussion to talk about Jay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. Then Josh, you can read out the email from.
All right. So I just have a short email here from Dylan just saying, hi Josh, I'm unfortunately unable to make tonight's meeting. I was unable to make arrangements around my prior work commitment. I hope the council will still consider my application, as this was an unforeseeable event when my work schedule was finalized. I've made a point of attending the recent Senate meetings and believe the qualifications discussed in my application, in addition to the time and effort I put into campaigning, make me a strong candidate for this position. I appreciate your consideration, Dylan.
All right, perfect. The next person will be Taylor Quinn. If Daniel, you just read my mind.
Two minutes.
Okay, I'm just going to keep talking. Hi, everyone. My name's Taylor Quinn. I'm a third-year international development and social anthropology combined honors student with what I call a specialization in entrepreneurship. And I'm also on DSU Council and have been for the last couple of years. So in short, I came to Dal from Vancouver, having never been to Nova Scotia, and knew one person in the province. And he said, yo, Taylor, in the summer before I started, do you want to start a society? So we started a society before I had arrived in Nova Scotia, and that society ended up raising tons of money and doing cool stuff in our first semester, and that kind of got me hooked on all this DSU stuff, and as the years progressed, the university more broadly. I'm currently the outgoing president of the Arts and Social Sciences Society, and I have been on that society, for a couple of years now. And in short, academics are my life here at Dal. I started the student academic experience, or the petition to prioritize the student academic experience. That was one of many pieces of the library activism in the fall, and was discussing that with Dr. Florazone, and Dr. Florazone told me that students can come and petition protest in my office if you guys feel like your needs haven't been met. So I've interacted with admin. I've sat on numerous university committees over my career, Senate appeals committees. I know the processes of the universities, and I know the power structures in play. But in short, my three priorities on Senate are student representation, which I think obviously the flow is going, but really actually making that happen. international learning. I work at the International Center with international students and see how academic advisors in different faculties deprioritize international students firsthand. So really working to prioritize international learning experiences into the curriculum, Adele. And the third thing was, there's many things, and I'd love for you to ask lots of questions. Thank you.
All right. All right, our first question will be Hema.
I was just going to ask, what's your third priority?
Rain check. I totally have drawn a blank based on the pressure of Beth coming down. So I apologize. But there were three, but there's many more. The priorities come from the DSU and from student issues, and that's how the library stuff started this year. So really looking at what students want and addressing those needs.
All right, are there any other questions for Taylor? Ryan?
What subcommittees do you plan on sitting on and why?
So when it comes to Senate, I'm really interested in sitting on kind of like I remember my third priority now. Good question. Sitting on the kind of the academic planning committees that look at like the structures of how courses are structured and the structures of interdisciplinary education, because everyone loves interdisciplinary education, but the structures currently in place limit faculties and professors from actually creating interdisciplinary courses with other departments at the university. So the academic planning committees.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Speaking rights for Jessica from Laura.
Hey, Taylor. I was just wondering, as DAS president, I was just wondering, like, because you've obviously been working with a lot of different things, what would you think would be the number one issue for academics on campus right now?
Good question. I guess my time starts now, so I should start talking. That is a fantastic question, and if I'm elected, I would work with my fellow Senate reps, and I think honestly the DSU Council should talk about those things more and really figure out what is the number one academic issue. Personally speaking, to give you an answer, I see it as being kind of a culture of competition and not collaboration, because with the URBA funding structure, faculties are trying to eat each other in order to get more students in their classes so they can get more money, and therefore cross-disciplinary courses are not being offered, and international students are low on the priority list because of that.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Jamal.
When you said you plan on talking to students about academic issues, honestly, students on section campus have no time to come and talk to you. So what's your plan on knowing what the academic issue on section is?
It's a great question. So I currently work as a building attendant for Dalhousie Security, where I sit in buildings late at night, and last year I sat down on Sexton. And if I got this position, I will guarantee that I'll talk to my boss and I'll get a shift next semester back down on Sexton. So I'll spend at least 8 hours of a weeknight every week for both semesters next year talking to Sexton students in their own home.
All right.
That was an easy one because I had that.
Thank you. Can you please go get Sen?
Yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Not awkward unless you make it awkward, Hema.
Come to the front and we'll give you a mic. You have 2 minutes. Okay.
Hi, I am Sudarshan Sengel. I want to express myself in my name itself because I want to intro about me. No one knows about me. I want to tell in my name itself: S for sincerity, U for ultimate, D for diplomatic, H for honesty, A for aspire or for rapture, and again S for splendor, habit, nothing is impossible, thinking person. I want to tell you that nothing is impossible, thinking person. Whichever it comes in life, we can do anything. And I'm not like to talk anything more, because whatever we talk, speak, it comes to air and it will spread like a noise to everyone, and it won't be done. So I would like to work in this community more, which I will be noticed by everyone, and it will be put in the notice board, and it will be there for lifelong. And same like, and I want to tell about that. I want to work in a group and involved in a group manner, and to show that whichever possible things I can do something for me. Same likewise, everyone who apply for this position, everyone have the skill. Whoever comes in this will do something, because whatever in their heart will be shown in a good manner. It's in your position and in your hand to choose who according to your mind and heart. Thank you for my opportunity.
Thank you. All right, questions?
What are the experience you have that you think you are qualified for a senator position?
I've been a 3 years work experience in Indian welfare organization. I've been a volunteer experience. The community will shows, government will tells about the awareness of uneducated people about the HIV and the sex education system. And also I have the 1 year experience in a school in undergraduate education in college about the event organization symposium and class representative of a year.
All right, any other questions? Ryan?
I'm asking this question to everyone. What Senate subcommittees would you like to sit on and why?
Please repeat the question.
What Senate subcommittees would you like to sit on and why? There's about 9 of them or 7 of them. If you don't know any of them, that's okay.
Mainly I like in the student senator because it's involved in academic activities. More like, well, I've been brought up here to the academic activities. It's not like a small thing. I have so much of a distraction and everything and happened in my life in education system. I came here in the steps manner, so I love the academics and I will prove in that.
Any other questions? Yes, Jessica. Speaking rights from Daniel.
I was just wondering, like, what would you think is one of the biggest academic problems on campus or issues?
The main problems will occur in academics for international students is communication, because we want to have a good communication skills in that. But we have a skill to improve that in the manner, and I'll show a way into that to improve our communication. And everyone in the heart, there will be an idea and research, and it will be in a buried in the heart, but it should come in a way that it should prove everyone.
All right. One last question. Anyone? Going once? All right. Thank you very much.
If anyone difficult in writing my name, full name, Sudarshan Sindel, please write my name as SSSS.
All right, perfect. Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to move into in camera. JD?
I just received a message from Jay Fredette. He says he wishes to withdraw.
All right.
I asked him if he was going to make it to the meeting. He says no.
Well then. Now there's only 5 people to talk about. So I would now either recommend a motion to move in camera or a motion for a moderated caucus. If we do not want to move in camera, there's a motion to move in camera on the floor, seconded by Hema. All right. Would you like to say why you want to move in camera?
I just think it's fair for all the candidates that we speak without the gallery.
All right. Any comments against moving in camera? Speaking rights to Jessica.
Not against moving in camera, I understand. But there is something that I would like to speak to in camera if that was possible.
Unfortunately, that will not be possible. Are you comfortable saying it now? I would let you have the floor for a minute if you would like. If you would like to write it down to be read out by the chair in camera, you may do that.
Yeah, I just felt that it would be fair to have it in camera, like I could write it out.
If you would like to send me a Facebook message, since I think we're Facebook friends, I can read it out if that's okay for you.
Okay.
Is that good? Or an email. You can send an email. I don't care. Whatever's easier. Is that okay?
Well, you're the chair. What do you want?
Not enough people say that to me. Just send me a Facebook message. So if there are no further comments, all those in favor of moving into camera at this time? All those opposed? Fantastic. I would ask that the peanuts leave the gallery. Secret ballot vote. Sorry, that's all those in favor of having a secret ballot vote. Sorry, that does require a vote. All those opposed? Secret ballot vote passes. All right, so Rams, if you can. Yes, it is actually in our appointments procedure that no member of council may be prohibited from voting, even if they are running. So, yes. Yes, you need to write your constituency, and you need to write 0 names, 1 name, 2 name, or 3 names. If you write more than 3 names, that will be considered a spoiled ballot. Yes, Taylor, did you have a question? You can just refuse to cast one. If you refuse to cast a ballot, that will. Yeah. Yes, Will? Can I zoom in? Oh, yes, I can zoom in. No, that's not zooming. That's zooming. Oh, gosh. Yes.
And then choices?
Constituency, and then either 0 names, 1 name, 2 name, or 3 name. It's empty? Okay.
In order doesn't.
And the order doesn't matter.
Sorry. The next item on the agenda after this is the budget. So if anybody, I think while I go count the ballots, I will let Josh answer some questions about the budget if there are any. Just don't get too out of control. You can appoint a non-council scrutineer, but you can't. Oh, if somebody would like to come watch me count, it can be you can appoint a non-council scrutineer, but you cannot appoint a councillor to be your scrutineer, and you cannot be your own scrutineer. Does that make sense? All right. Well, you get to answer questions about the budget. Does anybody want to appoint a scrutineer? Yeah, a scrutineer is somebody who just makes sure that I actually count correctly.
Yeah.
The candidates have to.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Coney. You don't mind.
John, can you be my scrutineer?
We don't need one from every 5.
Hey guys, so I didn't pull up the budget presentation again because I figured you kind of already saw it when it was emailed out with the budget. So I guess if anyone has any questions that they didn't already email to me or come in and talk to me about, now would be the time. Or we can just hang. Yeah.
I don't actually know like anything about how the DSU budget is formed, so this might be like a really obvious question, but I'm just curious to know like who you actually consult with when you're constructing the budget.
It's really just like all the departments affected by the budget. I don't consult with societies because society fees are just kind of an in and out, so we obviously don't have any effect on their budgets. So it's really just any department that would involve any changes to their budget. There wasn't really anything too drastic this time, so there wasn't really much consultation overly necessary. But a lot of it's really just more executive discussions around the executive departments, and then obviously if like campus copy's having a change, I'll go down and sit with Jen downstairs or anything like that.
So then, sorry, can I ask another question? Yeah. So if somebody did want to make like a really radical change to the budget, I'm not saying that I do, I'm just saying like if somebody was interested, how, like, what's the likelihood of that actually being implemented? Like, what would be the process of that sort of change?
I would say bring it forward to the VPFO, and then it can be something incorporated into executive meetings. It can be discussions that are carried forward, and could be something that happens in revisions. Could be, it would obviously expand into consultations with whoever that might affect. But realistically, I suppose anything's possible as long as like the proper discussions are had. But I'd say the first step would just be a sit down with the VPFO, just to kind of mention the idea, kind of give an introduction to it. Yeah.
All right, cool, thanks.
Josh, I emailed you and asked a question along these lines, but just if you could clarify, and I asked about regarding the leadership budget and kind of how that money was allocated. And Josh, correct me, but Josh's answer, which I kind of already knew, was that it's kind of turned into the strategic initiative fund for any speakers or leadership type things, which really means anything, such as the farmers market and the lobby. Would there be any possibility, and how would we go about creating some sort of accountability around that very large pot of money that's kind of used as the exec's catch-all right now? In a similar conversation to this advocacy budget needing to come to council or whatnot, how could, and in general then, kind of like how could council have more decision power over those very large decisions that the execs are making to their own?
My recommendation would obviously just be to bring a motion forward to council, just kind of outlining what you'd like to see out of that department, kind of saying, hey, we'd like you to bring those propositions forward to council before any spending occurs, or whatever method you might see that being handled. That way that restriction can be placed on it. Right now, like you said, it's kind of being used for leadership initiatives by the executives. That's where the market came from. That's where funding for the app came from, as well as a few other things. But I would say just recommend bringing forward a motion to council, just kind of the same as we're doing with the advocacy budget, just outlining exactly what you or council or your constituents would like to see. That kind of answers.
Hey, just a quick question. So page 1 of the budget, line 11 under expenses, the line for advocacy groups, it shows between 13 to 14, 14 to 15, 19% increase.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that things are in flux and not everyone or even anybody knows what's going on with advocacy groups, but how does it increase?
I can actually perfectly explain that. What happened was during revisions, some spending had occurred out of Aaron's campaigns line that was actually supposed to be taken out of the CASA line, but through the redistributing during revisions, it actually lowered that advocacy line, and we increased his campaigns line. But when we made the new budget, we put that money back into the advocacy line where it should have been. So that's why it raised it back up. Ballots are taking a very long time to count.
Hey, I'm just curious about on the summary page, under expenses, the first line is governance and external lobbying. And I'm just curious, can you give like more of a breakdown of what that 250?
Just one sec, I'll pull it up. Sorry, I should have had this up ahead of time. I suppose I've got time right now. Just one sec. Just off the top of my head, obviously some of the big components would be CASA, SNS. Some of the other things are leadership, not leadership initiatives, but leadership training for the executive. We bring in like an external individual who actually comes in for kind of professional leadership training. Let me see what else I have in here. Sorry. All right, so the full breakdown, things included in there are kind of like the pay for the council chair as well as the board of ops chair, the council secretary, expenses for when we have our AGM, things like council orientation, and then CASA and SNS, as well as like our legal fees incurred for legal opinions and whatnot. And then the sponsorship funds is really just what's found in there.
And so is that the number that we have here for the 2014-2015, is that including, has that like removed part of the CASA money?
The CASA money will still be under there regardless. It'll just be in a different budget line. So like there'll be another budget line within that department that'll refer to the funds, and then the budget that we're discussing tonight will be included as an addendum to the budget. So it's not going to be like a separate department created. It'll still be under governance and external lobbying, so that number won't change at all. Because we're still going to be budgeting the full money for CASA. So that number, like the final number, won't change. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So, sorry. So
no worries.
We're still going to be budgeting the $40,000, but instead of budgeting it to CASA, it'll be budgeted to something else, but we still keep it under this headline. Is that
Exactly.
what you're saying?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The full amount will still be budgeted nonetheless.
Can I just ask one more thing quickly? I just noticed that the levies, the new levies weren't on here.
Yeah, I didn't do that because they hadn't gone before DAL yet, so I didn't include them in that yet. I mean, obviously they won't have any overall net change. It's just I wanted to wait till DAL did the final verification. Obviously they're fine, but I just didn't want to put them in until that happened.
Passed yesterday.
George, why are the budget for the student health plan not shown? Like, are they classified or?
Sorry.
It's nowhere like the student health plan budget are shown here.
Student health plan budget?
Yep.
That hasn't been shown from what I can see here for the past couple of years. We passed a motion that it was removed from the operating budget, so it's run separately. I mean, it doesn't have any effect on the operating budget. It's the same as society fees. It's paid out and it's only kept for the health plan, so it has no overall effect on the operating budget.
So does that include the dental plan too?
Yeah, that's included in the health plan. That's all just one separate entity that's run by the DSU. Yeah. Bathroom break?
You do executive reports now. Get it out of the way.
Josh, so there's quite a bit of money in the budget that, or not quite a bit, there's money in the budget that is somewhat discretionary, which is, budgeted for projects and such every year, but it doesn't have a specific salary allocation or whatnot. And this new advocacy money coming from CASA will be an example of that, that will be used for new things. Like, what process is in place in past years and going forward as well, but from your experience this past year, to actually, like, ensure that that money that could in reality go to many various things actually goes to the right thing and not just the same thing as the year before? And like, who defines the right thing?
By all means, I assume you mean things like strategic initiatives and whatnot. So what we had this year is it was just kind of an executive consultation process as well as talking to the staff. We have our bi-weekly exec meetings, so we would sit down and have discussions, and until we kind of came to consensus around something that we were going to spend it on, it was basically a decision decided that way.
Do you think that's the best way?
I think no matter what, there's always some room for improvement there, Mr. Quinn. Just that it was through
Yo, Josh, what's FA&R?
FA&R is like it's amount of money put aside for basically small building renovations, like anything that happens. We had some damage to a wall that we have to repaint, so it'd be paid out of there. It's future alterations and renovations. So yeah, it's just kind of like any little things like electrical work or say like that wall broke, it would come out of FA&R just to repair that.
All right. Sorry, your elbow and my knee didn't get along. I am waiting on an interpretation of, I'm waiting for Will to pull up some policy. We need to double check something before I can make the announcement. I am very sorry. I'm assuming the budget has been discussed completely? Is there's a motion to approve moved by Josh. Is there a seconder? Allison? All right. All those in favor of calling the question? All right. All those in favor of the 2014-2015 budget to be adopted as presented, please raise your hands. All those opposed? Any abstentions? All right. If you are abstaining, elbows straight in the air, and would you like to be noted? No? If you would like to be noted, keep your hand up. So hold on. Everybody who abstained, put your hand up again. Abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 abstentions. And the people who would like to be noted are Jamel, Mabuber, and Aaron Beal.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Last thing.
We're now going to move into approval of the advocacy budget. Oh, yeah. Yay. Yay. All right. We're now going to move into approval of the advocacy budget. The advocacy budget has been circulated and includes the following information. Give me 1 second, Will. At $10,000 for advocacy review, split as shown. $17,000 for advocacy in the fall, split as shown. And $17,000 for advocacy in the winter, split as shown, which is the same as advocacy in the fall, so you just kind of need to look at that. Can everybody see that? All right, Josh, you can now field some questions, so you can take this back. Oh yeah, speak to it, and then we'll field some questions.
Yeah, so obviously I was open to consultations during those couple time frames that I had available. Had a couple good discussions with some people and kind of developed this based out of that as well as based on last year's budget. As I said, I don't bring this forward with any intention of it necessarily remaining concrete, set in stone. I bring this forward as kind of a stepping stone to council to have something in place so there's not just $44,000 in play money available. The reason the numbers are kind of so large is because I had kind of had to quickly adjust based off of last week's decision. So yeah.
All right. In that case, Will. No, never mind. I'll explain. Okay.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Josh at this time? We're going to finish up advocacy, and then we're going to go back to Senate. Does anybody have any questions for Josh at this time? Yes, Jen. Who's running the mic? Daniel, for Jen?
Thanks. Sorry, can you break down the $10,000 for advocacy review? I just don't. That just seems like a lot of money for the advocacy review process. Like the chair.
Like I said, like this is literally just like a working stepping stone document. Like I'm not trying to give something solid. This isn't something I have a lot of experience with. I obviously wasn't on the the advocacy committee. I don't necessarily know people are paid for these positions. This is just like literally rough ideas coming out of consultations with some people and just trying to give council some stepping stone moving forward. And so that we at least have some form of a structure that we're not just kind of saying, here's $44,000, have fun. I'm not saying this needs to be set in stone. This is literally for council to keep molding and keep shaping.
Point of order. Can we have discussion?
Yep. We can have discussion.
Just so that you guys can understand what's happening right now, there was a tie, and as the chair, and in accordance with the voting process, I am now casting the deciding vote on the tie for the Senate position. Yeah. So there was a tie for third place, which means that the 3 candidates who were not the top 2 candidates are all still on the table, and I am casting the deciding vote. Because it's first past the post, and because this is an appointment position, and therefore it is out of our voting in the union rules and procedures. So that's why that's what I was doing at the front here. So with that in mind, we can I would entertain a motion to move into a moderated caucus to discuss the advocacy planning or the advocacy budget. So if anybody has a certain amount of speaking times, certain length of the moderated caucus, now would be the time to throw that out there.
Point of order.
Yep.
Can we not have a revote on just that last person? No.
That would not be that's not the policy, unfortunately. It's an appointment. If there is a tie, the deciding vote goes to the chair, section 18. So,
So, sorry, can I point of order again? Just in Robert's rules actually recommends preferential ballot, which is like, so you rank it. I understand with 3 people, that's complicated.
I understand, but unfortunately, we have a recommendation that came forward from the elections committee, which was then followed, and it is actually the same process that was used last year when there were more than 3 people, which was basically that every single vote counted as a vote when it was first past the post. So that's what happened last year when there was 4 people running. So that's what we just did now. I can pull up the section that says where it is, and we'll, if you guys want to see, but it is in the union rules and procedures policy. So section 18 says voting. The chair of council does not have the right to vote except when there is a tie in the vote, in which case the chair shall break the tie by voting accordingly to his or her judgment of the issue. So actually, I am only able to choose between the 2 people who tied for 3rd place. So that's that. So with that in mind, we will go back to the advocacy budget. Is there a motion to move into a moderated caucus to discuss this? Yes, JD.
Yeah, I'll move 10 minutes moderated caucus, 1 minute speaking time.
All right, is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Laura. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right. And raise your hand. JD.
Hey, I don't know if any other council committees with chair or members receive honoraria, especially honoraria that high. So I'm actually worried that the advocacy planning committee is getting much more of a budget than it needs or deserves. So I just want to register that concern.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next? Yes, Aaron.
Thanks. Cool. I'm glad it's on the agenda. I hope we can all treat it kind of just as a discussion in the most general sense. So I wanted to just present a bit of an alternative. This is a really, really drafty job description that's drafted by myself and the incoming VP AE, just what an advocacy and outreach coordinator could do, and then some like specific examples. Again, it's like meant to be a draft, so the examples are in no way like a mandate to that person. It's just like, if we had this person, this is like one of many things they could do. Then some explanations, so I'll just hand that around.
Is this a formal amendment to the advocacy budget as has been presented?
No, I mean,
okay.
My understanding is that we're voting on this today, but it can be amended down the road. So I would hope that this is just the start of a conversation that we can continue to make.
Point of information.
Yes.
Are we essentially just voting on the construction of a budget, even though it's not? This isn't set in stone. We're just agreeing to create a budget, and that budget will be molded based on our interpretation. Okay.
All right. Would anybody else like to speak within the moderated caucus? Yes, Emma.
This is actually just a question to Josh. Did you consult, well, I guess Aaron is the outgoing VP AE, and then Jacqueline is the incoming VP AE? Did you talk to them about what they wanted to see for advocacy and where they think money should go?
I hosted open consultations that were just through 2 or 3 timeframes. I mean, I've had discussions with them, but not like in that context. I had it open to anyone who wanted to come by, they wanted to email me, call me, anything of that sort.
Okay. All right. Anybody else who would like to speak? Can we get speaking rights for Jessica from Taylor? Yes.
I was just wondering, where's this money coming from?
This $44,000 was freed up by the decision to rescind the decision to join CASA that was made last week. Am I answering that correctly, Josh? Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot that.
Would anybody else like to speak in this moderated caucus? Jen.
Could you scroll down or zoom out, or what's the rest of it?
The rest of it is winter advocacy, and it is exactly the same as fall advocacy.
Okay, so there's not actually any room to, like, there's no room to have a staff person in this. Like, it would be a very small honoraria, and that's it?
That is, yes, that is the current budget that has been presented.
I have a huge concern with it not being allocated to a staff person. And I just wanted to throw that out there.
All right, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak in this moderated caucus? Pat?
I remember speaking with Josh about the idea of having honoraria paid to students. The idea is that some of the work could be distributed amongst people who are currently students at the university, and it wouldn't necessarily be income, but it would kind of help to reimburse them for some of their time. And it would be less expensive than hiring a full-time staff person. But it isn't, as Josh has said, it's not, I mean, having a full-time staff person would be extremely useful. It's just very expensive, so this was one of the things that came up in conversation as an alternative.
All right, thank you. Who else would like to speak? Laura?
I guess I'd like to speak. Yeah, if we're talking about passing this really as a not set in stone thing, and I don't know, it feels weird to vote for something that when there's other things I'd like it to look like, but so I don't know. I guess this process is a bit confusing, but if we're voting for something and everyone agrees that this is a starting point, and we can talk about having a full-time staff person, we can talk about these other things, and that's what we're doing, then I guess that's cool.
I would just like to clarify this time that any member of this council can motion to amend this budget, and then that amendment can be up for debate. Any member of this council can motion to table this budget to the first meeting in May, and that would also be in order. You have options besides what is in front of you. All right, Tara.
I just wanted to make a comment that with the amount of funds available, if we wanted to run any events or do any kind of programming, you would not really be able to hire a full-time staff person unless you wanted to pay them $20,000 a year, and that's not very attractive to hire the type of person that we would want to be qualified. Just if we had more money, then but with what we have, I think this is a good option.
Anybody else? Just sorry, Aaron, and then JD. JD.
This is a question. Is there funds for advocacy outside of the 44,000 that was for CASA? That would be affecting any sort of programming as well.
Josh, you have permission to answer that question.
Yes. There's a $10,000 campaigns budget underneath the DPAE, as well as a larger printing budget than other departments.
All right, thank you.
We'll see Aaron now. Aaron. Feel.
Yeah, so I'm going to support this and maybe move something else in a second, but I do want to speak to why I think it should go to a staff person. Obviously, I've been thinking about this since November when we first put forward our alternatives presentation. And I want to acknowledge a mistake that we made this summer. So initially, when we dropped down to associate member of CASA, we were going to put this money towards a researcher. Quickly realized that $22,000 wasn't enough for a researcher, so we decided to hire a bunch of little people, like small-time honorarium. I'm sorry. And that was a mistake because it just meant that I've spent my whole year kind of like managing different things and running around. And I think what the DSU needs more than anything is people to support executives, and that means full-time staff. So you have the institutional knowledge, you have the experience. Like I've said a lot of times to this council, it's unfair. It's unfair for someone to run an election. Like they shouldn't have to have the skills. So I think a full-time staff person needs to have the skills to support an executive.
All right, thank you for this moderated caucus. Who else would like to speak? Rams.
Aaron, I don't know if you can provide some clarity on what conversations you've had with Jacqueline around this budget. For me, this budget right now is satisfactory. It's by no means ideal. I think a lot of changes do need to be made to it. As a point of moving forward for the incoming DPAD, again, my biggest concern would be their comfort level or recommendations on this budget. And so I would actually be in favor of, and depending on your response, if Jacqueline's seen this and you've had a response, then I would not motion to table to the first May meeting. Otherwise, I feel if a lot of concerns are still in the room and this could take a different form, then I would actually vote in favor of tabling this to the May meeting.
All right, thank you. Jomel?
Can I motion it right now?
You can motion it, but because we are still in a moderated caucus, it will require 2/3 to move out of the moderated caucus to vote on whatever you motion.
So I would probably motion it after the moderated caucus.
Okay, all right. Who else would like to speak in this moderated caucus? Jen?
Thanks. I think that even though we've talked about how we can change this in the future and make adjustments and that kind of thing, if the actual structure of this is flawed, then we shouldn't pass it, right? Like if the actual structure of breaking it down into like the committee, the fall, the winter, having the honorariums, having the program lines and that kind of thing, if there is no room for a staff person, then the actual structure is flawed. And so we shouldn't put through something that is structurally flawed.
All right, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak in this moderated caucus? Josh.
I was going to amend my own motion to include just kind of that it's still any changes to this be approved by council.
So you would like a be it further resolved
yes,
that
be it further resolved that changes to this budget be brought forward and motioned by council. Just that that's included.
All right, thank you. So that is not in order at this time, but it is written down now, so I'll remember later. All right, Caitlin?
I just want to say I think that it's like important that we do pass this budget because otherwise we're just going to have $44,000 just sitting there and could be used in any way, shape, or form. I think it's important that over the summer, Jacqueline has time to figure out what her advocacy priorities are, work with students, talk with students, reach out, do some more planning, and actually figure out where we want to go with advocacy this year to then decide on what sort of capacity of a researcher that we need in order to accomplish those goals. I think that we just need to put some safeguards in place to ensure that this money is going to be used effectively, and then we can come back to it at a later date when everyone has been able to figure out what their priorities actually are.
All right, thank you. We have 30 seconds left. If somebody would like to speak, Jen.
I think that it's important that we safeguard the money, but I don't think that we should be safeguarding it by passing a motion like this. Like, I don't even know how we would attempt to amend this motion if it's structurally different than the alternative, right? So I think that, if anything, we should table it, come up with an alternative, and talk about it at next council. But I mean, like, this money isn't going to disappear or anything, you know? Like we can make a motion to say that it has to be approved by council. We don't have to approve this to make sure that it's safeguarded.
All right, thank you. That concludes our moderated caucus. At this time, motions that would be in order would include a motion to table, a motion to amend, and a motion to extend the moderated caucus. I would recognize Brett Taylor.
Motion to table.
There's a motion to table. Is there a seconder for that motion? Jamel, would you like to speak to why you think this should be tabled, Brett? You don't have to. You can always say no.
I mean, we're talking a lot about safeguarding it and putting strings on it and make sure council has to pass it. You have to do that anyways. And if we pass this and say that they have to change it by going through council, well then they can and they're going to do what they want. We're not the next council. Leave it for them.
All right. Jamel, would you like to speak as to why you seconded? Yes?
I think we are discussing on this thing a lot, and as it's also easy for the new council to discuss with the students what they exactly need. They can make changes if required to this budget, and so that's the reason why I feel this needs to be tabled.
All right. I will now allow like 30 seconds if anybody wants to speak in favor of tabling this motion. Please raise your hand. Would anybody like to speak against tabling this motion? In that case, all those in favor of tabling this motion to the first council meeting of May, Brett, was that what you were going for? Yeah. To the first council meeting in May. All those opposed? Would you like to be noted? And any abstentions? So that's 2 abstentions and 2 opposed. And would anybody like to be noted? The commerce rep, whatever his name is, would like to be noticed.
It's okay, I'm not important.
Alex Lelieber. L-E.
Yeah, whatever.
Lieber. All right. With that, this motion has been tabled. We are now moving into the Equity and Accessibility Fund rollover, which will happen right after I announce the Senate results. So the Senate results are, and the scrutineers have approved this result. Your senators for next year will be Ali Caladine, Dylan Latondra, and Taylor Quinn. Is there a motion to destroy the ballots? Moved by Danny and seconded by Jamel. I have them in my hand. I don't know what we do now to actually destroy them.
I'm going home and I have a wood stove.
Sorry?
I'm on my way home and I got a wood stove.
Okay. I'm not eating. Oh. Maybe I should blend them. Will it blend? Okay, anyway, moving on. The Equity and Accessibility Fund rollover motion is to use the E&A department funds from 2013-2014 in 2014-2015. The motion is saying to move to let the $8,640 that was earmarked for the 2013-2014 fiscal year to be used in the coming 2014-2015 fiscal year. My understanding is that Alexandra was hoping that this would be used to fund during the summer because the Equity and Accessibility Office was not founded until August, so it wasn't founded at the beginning of the fiscal year last year. So Jen, would you like to speak to this motion at this time, since you are the mover? Sure. All right. You have 2 minutes. Oh, sorry. First, is there a seconder for this motion? Taylor Quinn. Okay.
Yeah, so the E&A office, as it was getting started this year, didn't end up spending all of the funding. I don't think that funding should be moved to another department. I think that it should stay within this office. This is a way for us to simply do that. We will also be having the next motion, of course, is to extend the contract of one of the people that is currently working in the office. And so this would be a way in order to not use the new funds to pay for that position. So.
All right, thank you. Taylor, as the seconder, you have 1 minute to speak to why you seconded this motion if you would like to. You don't have to.
I think this is a no-brainer. I was kind of curious / confused by what Josh said on there being a bunch of money already there. So maybe he could clarify, but if not, I think this is a no-brainer. So,
I can clarify.
Yes, you have 45 seconds.
Just to clarify first off, that money just is not spent, isn't going to go to another department. That money just remains in the account that it's in, which is the accessibility fund. And given what I was trying to get at earlier was that given that the Equity and Accessibility Office won their levy, since we'll be receiving those funds in the fall, and given that they're a department of us, we don't necessarily need to roll over this money for them to have funding for the summer. They're our office. We can fund the office for the summer out of our own funds because we'll be collecting the levy in the fall.
you can give them the money before the levy.
Yeah, exactly. We have the funds to keep the office funding going on. Kind of just let it die out.
So is your interpretation that the $8,640 is going to stay in that budget line to begin with?
No, it's not budgeted for this year. We have to re-budget for that. But I'm just saying that given that that office is going to be collecting a levy in the fall, we can fund that office through the summer without necessarily needing that $8,600. Given the amount of money that office is going to be bringing in the fall, I don't think it's necessary to provide an additional $8,600.
All right, thank you. So with that, there are now, we can either motion to call the question or we can motion to move into a moderated caucus of a certain length with a certain number of speaking times. Are there any motions on the table? Taylor?
Motion to call the question.
There is a motion to call the question. Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Josh. Are there any other motions on the table at this time?
Motion to move into moderated caucus for 2 minutes.
With?
30-second speaking time.
All right, is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Tara. All right, we'll vote on the moderated caucus first. All those in favor of moving into a moderated caucus of 2 minutes with 30-second speaking times, please raise your hand. Elbows straight. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All those opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And abstentions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so we will now move into a 2-minute moderated caucus with 30-second speaking times. Who would like to speak? Tara.
I guess this is just sort of a question to Josh. So it's my understanding that in all departments, when the year is up, whatever money they have left over is then rebudgeted. So doing this is like an exception to what all departments do. Is that correct?
To an extent, it's, yeah. Basically, like, to put it back in there, we have to rebudget for it. Like when you start a new fiscal year, it's basically you're starting fresh, you're redoing your budget, you're making a new budget for the next year as to what you expect to spend. This money did go back into our general operating budget as this was operated from the accessibility fund. It's just money that was not spent out of 1 year's worth of the accessibility fund.
All right, thank you. Who else would like to speak? Aaron Beal?
I just want to speak in favor of this. I think we all know that there's no shortage of equity issues on campus, and recent events in the last weeks have kind of shown that. This money is not going to go to waste, and by any means, this department is just starting out, and it hasn't been a year. It was initially approved for a year. Yet that year is not over. So I think it's worth investing this to make sure it gets off to a really good start.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak at this time? Can we get speaking rights for Jessica? Taylor?
Yeah. Like, I'm not against the equity and accessibility office or department. I really think it's a really good thing for the university. However, I don't like that this motion doesn't really sit well with me, especially where I was appointed to this ad hoc committee and I wasn't even aware, like, allowed to sit on these decisions. So I think like waiting another week until we make a decision on this to get some more input.
All right, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak this time? Rams.
Hi, I'm sorry I didn't catch this earlier, but for me, again, it was like a no-brainer to transfer over the money. But Josh, maybe you can clarify this. So this is $8,640 that belongs in the accessibility fund.
Well, that's what.
This
was funded out of the accessibility fund.
So in my opinion, then I would actually not support this motion because the office is getting summer and fall and winter funding, and this $8,000 will go back to the accessibility fund, which will be used to create 8 more bursaries for students in need of accessibility funding, and this is funding especially for them, according to the original levy question. So the whole point of running the ENA office levy this year was to separate those 2 sources of funding, to have a $30,000 equity office and a fund. So I want to point that out.
That brings us to the end of the moderated caucus. Is there a motion to extend? Yes, as a point of information.
So if this doesn't roll over, will we have enough money to extend the contract for the staff member over the summer?
I would assume it's within the budget of what's been funded from the levy, then yes. I mean, they're receiving a large sum of money. I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah.
Yes, the answer is yes. There is funding to
But it would
pay.
be coming out of next year's budget. It would be coming out of the levy.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. There motion to extend the moderated caucus, or a motion to call the question, or a motion to table. Motion to call the question moved by Aaron Beal, seconded by Mackenzie. Amelia Mackenzie. That's it. I'm good with names. No, I'm not. All right. With that in mind, are there any other motions at this time? All right. All those in favor of calling the question? The question is called. All those in favor of the motion to use the ENA department funds from 2013, 2014, and 2014, 2015 by letting the $8,640 roll over into the 2014, 2015 year. Please raise your hand. Elbow straight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 in favor. All those opposed, please raise your hand, elbows straight. 10, and all those abstaining. 6. With that, this motion does not pass. Moving on to the equity and accessibility ad hoc recommendations moved by Jen Nowelski, member at large proxy for Jacqueline Skiptunis. Is there a seconder for this motion at this time? Laura Ovens. All right, Jen, as the mover, you have 2 minutes to speak to why you've moved this motion, which does not have any whereas clauses and simply says, be it resolved that the ENA committee follow the timeline proposed by the ad hoc committee in developing an ENA office vision, job descriptions, and hiring dates for the ENA office, and be it further resolved that the contract of the current equity and accessibility campaigns coordinator be extended to July 31st, 2014. I'm just going to pull up the timeline, which
It's specific, it's down.
it's farther down. Is this the objectives? Is that your timeline or the current budget? Oh my gosh. Timeline, there we go. So to have the DSU exec team do a policy review of E&A, establish an equity roundtable / committee, discussion with incoming and outgoing executives and review of job descriptions, work on, have the equity staff focus on transition report and structure of transition for May, and working with DASA and DAGS and the university around the grad house incident. Then there's May objectives on the equity staff, which I'm going to let you guys do a quick read over, which is divided into equity staff and DSU exec and oversight committee, and the June and July objectives. So this is basically just a timeline for the summer, correct, Jen? All right, I'm going to leave the timeline up here, and Jen, you're going to get 2 minutes to speak as the mover of this motion. Pat, did you have a point of order or a point of information?
I'll have a motion, but after she's had a chance.
Thank you.
Yep, so basically we met, we thought the best way to go through with this was for the executive and the committee to work together, a committee that will be appointed at the next council meeting, to consult with the larger community to find out what we want the office vision to be, then based on the office vision, because this was a trial year, so what we want the office vision to be, then based on that, what we want the job description to be. We can have very specific objectives moving forward. With that, we'll create the job descriptions and then hire the research position by June 1st and hire the campaign position by July 1st. And then have a month of transition with one of the current staff members to make sure that the office is set up really well before next year, which was a huge problem last year where the office wasn't off to a good start and didn't have a lot of support. So we thought that this would be the best way to set it up moving forward.
All right, thank you. The seconder, Laura Ovens, has a minute if she would like it.
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think this plan is really important for the transition of the office and moving into a new year, having some continuity, having some overlap with staff so that we can pick up where we left off and not have to build up the office from scratch or start new initiatives.
All right, thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion from Pat.
So, point of information, is there another council meeting before the end of this council, like
No.
the sitting council?
No.
Okay, then no motion.
All right. At this time, I would entertain either a motion to move into a moderated caucus, motion to call the question, or a motion to table. Any of those motions, whatever you feel comfortable with. Rams.
Motion to move into 2-minute moderated caucus.
Is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Jamal. All those in favor? Straight arms? Straight arms? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. As there are 24 voting people in the room right now, no, that should still pass. Any opposed? Are there any people opposed? Any abstentions? 12 straight elbows? Okay, we're going to assume that everybody who didn't vote abstained. All right, so in that case, we'll move into a 2-minute moderated caucus with 30-second speaking times. Who would like to speak? Hands straight in the air.
Rams.
All right. Sorry, yeah, Daniel, to speak from here. So I was actually one of the founding authors of this document, and so the committee was founded last council meeting, and we've only met twice. It's been a very compressed timeline. So this is what we've proposed, but again, I'm sorry to hear that people were excluded from the committee. When the chair called the meeting, only 3 of the other members showed up, so unfortunately, I think that's not acceptable. So again, that kind of undermines the legitimacy of this document. Moving forward, I don't know if we can perhaps include Jessica in the new committee we're going to found as well, but I mean, that's a huge oversight. Sorry, I'll quickly point out that...
No. Like that was 30 seconds.
Yeah. All right, who else would like to speak? Would anybody else like to speak? Oh, Rams, look at you go.
So this document does recommend extending one of the timelines to July 30, one of the contracts to July 31st. But ultimately, I think this is something that really needs council attention, especially starting off in May, especially when we're drafting the office vision and the job descriptions as well. So for me, it's not the best solution for anybody involved, including the staff member that'll be staying on. This is not a full summer contract, but ultimately, I think this is the best we can come up with such a short time frame. But I'd like to bring this again to the committee's attention for the first council meeting.
All right, would anybody else like to speak in this moderated caucus? Pat, and then we'll get speaking rights for Jessica from somebody.
So I actually support the motion in spirit and everything, but I was just going to say, like, are we foisting this on the next council, and does it make sense? Does it not make sense to have the next council maybe just like vote on this decision since it's going to be their mandate that they're carrying forward? That's why I was going to motion to table earlier, but it wasn't in an effort to squash the issue. It's really just that I feel like we may just pass it in an effort to pass it for the sake of passing it, as opposed to actually considering it and giving it due consideration, considering the schedule was made after this meeting even began today.
All right, thank you. And we have Josh has speaking rights for Jessica.
Oh, thank you. I'd just like to echo what Ram says about the, I thank you for acknowledging that, not everybody's contacted for the meeting. So, of what's been proposed here and, being legitimate or, and I think for transparency, having another meeting to, before, this is actually passed. But also one thing I want to mention too is, with the contracts end, it's my understanding, when the contract ends, you end it and then you either advertise or rehire. So.
All right, thank you. That is the end of the moderated caucus. I would either entertain a motion to extend or a motion to call the question. Pat? Oh, sorry.
How about a motion to table?
There's a motion to table. Is there a seconder for that? There is a seconder from Josh. Are there any other?
First meeting of the next council.
Okay. Are there any other motions on the table at this time? Yes?
Motion to extend the moderated caucus by 2 minutes.
With 30-second speaking times. Is there a seconder for that? Pat, as the seconder, if you're seconding that, you're okay with us voting on that first? Are there any other motions at this time? All those in favor of extending the moderated caucus by 2 minutes? All those opposed? All right. Who would like to speak in the moderated caucus? Jen.
So I just wanted to point out that this is a timely issue because the contract for the staff person ends on April 25th, and so that's the original reason why we decided to create an ad hoc committee and figure out a timeline and figure out how we were going to extend the contract. So yeah, we can totally table this exact timeline if we want to, that's fine. But we do have to extend the contract if that's what we want to do. And this is an outline of why it's necessary for us to extend that contract.
All right, thank you. JD.
Would it be in order to motion to split this so that but about the contract can be voted on separately from the rest of it? It seems like part of this can be continued to be discussed, but the contract thing has a time that it needs to be addressed. Does that make sense?
All right, so there is a motion to divide the question, essentially. Is there a seconder for that? There's a seconder in Taylor Quinn. There's still 1 minute left in the moderated caucus, so would anybody like to, is anybody still like to speak at this time? All right, can we get speaking rights for Jessica? From Taylor?
I mean, bringing the motion to extend the contract to council, I mean, obviously, that's what two people could discuss, but I also too believe in what the students and having the students have opportunities also to be able to be transparent and if somebody wants to apply for a position, they should be able to apply for a position opening it up. My food bank job is done at the end of this month, so that position should be advertised and open up for people when a contract ends. Just even to make it, just to make it transparent for people.
All right, thank you. And Laura Evans.
Yeah, I think the issue is that we didn't get our stuff together to advertise the position and have the hiring process in time for the deadline for when the contract ends. If we don't extend the contract, there's going to be no one in that position, and there's going to be no real transition for the office, and I think that would be disastrous. So it's really unfortunate that this wasn't dealt with earlier. I do think the position should be opened up. That's why it'll be good to do that July, beginning of July.
All right, thank you. So at this time, we do have a motion to divide the question into recommendation 1, be it resolved that the E&A committee follow the timeline proposed by the ad hoc committee. And recommendation 2, be it resolved that the contract for the current ENA campaigns coordinator be extended to July 31st. That was moved by JD and seconded by Taylor? And seconded by Taylor. All those in favor of dividing the question? All right, the question stands divided. We are now talking only about recommendation 1, following the timeline.
Question.
Yep.
Does that include recommendation, like if that one passes, does the other one automatically?
No, they are now 2 separate questions, and we will vote on each separately. So the recommendation regarding the timeline, yes, Pat?
Motion to table until the first meeting of the next sitting council.
Okay, motion to table recommendation 1 to the first council meeting in May. Is there a seconder? Josh? Moved by Pat, seconded by Josh. All right, would anybody like to, any discussion on that? All those in favor of tabling this until the first council meeting in May, recommendation 1. All those opposed? Any abstentions? There are 3 abstentions. Three. Straight elbows in the air. There are 3 abstentions. Would any of you like to be noted? No? All right. Fabulous. Then that is tabled to the first council meeting in May. Recommendation 2, be it resolved that the contract of the current equity and accessibility campaigns coordinator be extended to July 31st, 2014. Is there a motion to either call the question, table, or open a moderated caucus? Pat?
Motion to call the question.
Is there a seconder? Alex Lalever, the DSU Comrep. Is there any debate on this issue at this time? All those in favor of extending the contract of the current ENA campaign coordinator to July 31st, 2014, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Any abstentions? Would any of you like to be noted? 3 abstentions? 5 abstentions? 5 abstentions? Any of you like to be noted? If you want to be noted, put your hand up. Pat and Josh. All right. With that, we have the executive reports. I'm not going to let them read them out to you. That's a waste of our time. There is no exec report from Danny, but Danny, I'm not giving you a microphone. That would be rewarding your delinquency.
I'm hosting a council meeting after this to talk about my exec.
So with that, are there any notices of motion at this time? You would have to be a council member in the incoming year to notice a motion at this time.
Tricky.
Are there any notices of motion at this time? Are there any announcements at this time? Yes, JD.
Yeah, I was approached by a staff. Sorry. I received communications from a staffer with the Nova Scotia NDP over the weekend. They're looking for people who are willing to speak to the provincial government's law amendments committee about how the budget will affect students. It's making some significant changes. So if you have any interest in speaking for up to 10 minutes, you need to use the whole time, but up to 10 minutes to an all-party committee, either propose amendments or just talk about how the budget will affect you. No matter what you have to say, you just have the option. If that interests you, come approach me because it'll be coming up the next week or so. So thanks.
Are there any other announcements at this time? Karthik?
This is regarding the announcement on a new society formed in computer science, Faculty of Computer Science. It's called the Graduate Computer Science Society. Like, it's not like dividing the existing computer society. It's like forming a new society. I mean, like, it focuses more attention on graduate students. So in total, as of now, we have 3 societies. So the Computer Science Society, and we have Women in Technology and Science. That's a society that focuses more on empowering women in our faculty. And the new society formed is focused more on graduate students, called the Computer Science Graduate Society. So the budgeting and other stuff is done by DAX, that allows the Association of Graduate Students. So just wanted to put that to you all.
All right, thank you. Are there any other announcements? Caitlin?
I am a Warner Brothers representative for Halifax, so if your society wants to partner in the coming year or over the summer for any sort of promotions and stuff, let me know.
All right, are there any other announcements at this time? Yes, Danny?
Oh, 2 microphones. Orientation week, leader applications are still open. They won't close for a couple of weeks. And the committee is going to be ramping up in the next couple of weeks. So if you're interested in that, or if you'd like to pass that on to your constituents, that'd be really fantastic. You can check that out at dsu.ca/orientation for more information. And the positions are now closed for Shine Director, Sex and Entertainment Director, Orientation Week Coordinator, and Orientation Week Sponsorship Coordinator. So if you were going to apply for those, sorry, they're closed now. But thank you all for listening to us over this council meeting, and this is maybe the last time I'll get to say goodbye for now to some of you. But it'll be hello to some of you too next year, in 2 weeks.
All right, are there any other announcements at this time? Is there a motion to adjourn? Moved by Alex Leliever and seconded by Pat. We do have to vote on that. All those in favor of adjourning at this time? Are there any opposed?
I'd like a check on quorum.
All right, thank you guys very much.
What a year.